Thank you very much, Lás Ceann Comhairle, and I want to thank all of the deputies for the contributions that have been made here today, and I want to support the government amendment that was being put forward by Minister Fleming. I want to address some of the claims that have been made by opposition TDs. And I want to do this on the basis of the claim that has been made about action that has been taken elsewhere and action that has not been taken here in Ireland. Two claims that have been made that are central to many of the political arguments that have been put here forward today. And then I'm going to conclude, Lás Ceann Comhairle, by addressing some of the points in Deputy Doherty's bill. Let me begin by addressing a point that has been made regarding what has taken place in the United Kingdom, a point that was made by many of the Sinn Féin speakers who supported Deputy Doherty's opening statement. Let's be very clear on what has happened in the UK. I'm going to read from their website because it is a set of facts that have been entirely absent in what has been put forward in relation to claims about what the FCA have done in the UK. It is correct to say that they have put forward proposals in relation to dealing with this issue, and they did indeed make reference to figures that were accurately quoted by Deputy Doherty in his opening contribution. But let's look at what they're then going to go on to do, which is the following. The FCA is seeking views on its proposals by the 25th of January of this year. It will consider all the feedback and intends to publish a policy statement and new rules next year, along with its response to the consultation feedback. So when we're focusing in on what is happening in the UK and claims of action being implemented in the UK, let's look at the reality of what is happening in the UK, which is they have published proposals, as outlined by Deputy Doherty, but these are proposals that are subject to public consultation, to further feedback, that will then lead to a policy statement with implementation of action next year. So that's not what we have heard from some opposition speakers here today. Another claim that was made by many deputies is that other countries have acted. Name them. Name the other countries that have acted. Name the other countries in the European Union that have implemented the bill that many opposition TDs are supporting here today. So if a claim is being made regarding the need of the government to act on the basis of actions that have been taken elsewhere, I'd ask those who are supporting this bill to acknowledge the reality of what is happening in the UK and to explain how this legislation has been implemented elsewhere and, if it has been, what the effects of it are. And I make these points because this is an issue that the government and the central bank is taking very seriously, which is why we are not putting forward an amendment to vote down Deputy Doherty's bill, because we do need to continue to engage on what is a very, very critical matter. And therefore, claims that are being made about the need for us to act on the basis of action that has happened elsewhere do need to stand up to scrutiny and do need to be debated here in the House. We then move on to what we are doing here in Ireland and the action that has already been taken and actions that are yet to be taken. Claims were made by opposition TD after opposition TD that nothing is happening. So I think it's worth acknowledging and making the case for what has actually happened. The interventions that have been put in place by the government, a brief list of which would include the Central Bank National Claims Information Database of 2018, the Insurance Amendment Act of 2018, the Judicial Council Act of 2019, the Personal Injuries Assessment Amendment Act of 2019, and then working with Deputy Doherty on the Consumer Insurance Contract Act of 2019. Action taken, action to come. All of this is included in steps that have been outlined by the Taoiseach, in the ministerial group that he is leading, in the government's action plan in relation to insurance reform, itemised actions that will be taken to deal with the issue that we know is there and we acknowledge progress needs to be made on, which is the rising premia and the high level of premia that many face, particularly small and medium-sized business owners, and what that means for their viability and what that means for their ability to keep their companies going and employ people. And that is the reason why these actions have been taken. It is the reason why there's an action plan from the government on further steps that we are going to take. In relation to the legislation that has been put forward by Deputy Doherty, I also want to acknowledge the focus he has brought on this issue. I want to acknowledge the scrutiny that he has brought in analysing what is a critical issue, as I have said, for many, many employers. But we do have concerns about this bill, and an acknowledgement of Deputy Doherty's intent on this matter, and an acknowledgement about our commitment to act further, doesn't prevent the government from also saying we have concerns about aspects of this bill. We have concerns about what it could mean for those who need insurance policies in the future in a way that is more affordable than they are now. And there are three concerns that we have. The first concern that we have is what it would mean for insurance companies that are operating here in Ireland to actually offer discounts. That is a serious concern that the government has, which needs to be reconciled, if it can be, with the intent behind this bill. The second concern that we have is what this bill could mean for the ability of new insurance providers and suppliers to come into this market, or existing insurance providers to provide new services in sectors of our economy in which they don't currently provide services. This is a legitimate and real concern. And I heard Deputy McNamara make the point, and he was correct, to say that there were only 2 insurance providers at a particular point for the childcare sector. We saw the huge difficulties that that caused, and if we want more supplier of insurance services in more parts of our economy, it is surely a legitimate point to make that we have a concern that this bill could affect that happening and even prevent it happening, and that's something the government does not want to see happen. But the final point relates back to why we are not opposing this bill. We are merely saying we are putting forward a timed amendment, which is an acknowledgement of the work that the Central Bank are doing and the value of that work which from a process point of view bears more than some similarity to the kind of work that has been praised by opposition TDs that is happening elsewhere. We believe it is appropriate that that work conclude, because we believe it is appropriate that you have an independent regulator who is overseeing this sector and has produced a report that has been commended by the opposition, that it is appropriate that we allow that process to conclude before further action is taken from the government. That, Lascán Comhairle, is not a member of the government, as so many of the opposition will always do, and always create a narrative of regarding me or the government or Minister Fleming standing by an elite, standing by those who are looking, it is claimed, to take advantage of those who need insurance. It is not the government standing with vested interests. It is the government recognising that work has already happened in relation to dealing with this issue. It's been led by our central bank, and this is an issue that should be returned to and will be returned to when the central bank have committed and concluded on the process which they themselves have initiated. And it is for that reason that, in conjunction with all of the action steps that we have taken, all of the policies that are in place, the effects of some of which are now being debated today, that this is one of the many issues in which the government is committed to making progress on. One fact, which I will conclude on, that was not acknowledged in any of the debates today, is that since the second quarter of 2018, we have seen insurance premia for the motor sector fall in each of those quarters, which shows the difference that competition, that the right policies can make within this area. However, what it also reminds me of is the need to allow our central bank to conclude on the work that they are doing.
Thank you,
and I think it's equally important, Ceann Comhairle, I conclude on this point, that we acknowledge what has happened accurately in other jurisdictions and what hasn't happened.
Thank you very much.